Welcome back to Ibiza, Spain, and to stop two of the 2025 World Aquatics Open Water World Cup, where today we continue making history with the first ever 3 kilometer knockout sprint. If the women's racing this morning showed us anything, it's that this new format is every bit the game changer we had hoped it to be. Fast, tactical, brutal, and absolutely thrilling to watch. Now it's the men's turn to take to the center stage, and the stakes couldn't be higher. This is not traditional open water. There is no time to settle, no margin for error. This is pure speed, tactics, and survival from the very first stroke. One mistake and you're out. Blink and you are done. Today we've got 63 men ready to lay it all on the line. Two 1.5 kilometer heats to slash the field, a ruthless 1 kilometer semi-final where the pressure ratchets up again, and finally a full throttle 500 meter final where one swimmer will claim the crown. Expect fireworks from World Cup superstars like Christoph Rozovsky, Marc-Antoine Olivier, Logan Fontaine, and David Bethlehem, just to name a few. But watch closely, because with this kind of racing, the next big name could emerge from anywhere. The breeze has lifted ever so slightly across the course since this morning, adding another layer of tactics and unpredictability to what already is a brutal format. Alice, after what we've witnessed in the women's race earlier, what are we expecting when the men hit the water today?
Hey, yeah, I will be expecting nobody to let anybody get away. I think after the results of yesterday that we saw as well, with the like three Italian breakaway that happened to the right of what we thought was the main race, I think there will definitely be a considered effort from everybody to um, be much more aware and forthcoming with not letting anybody allow a break like that to happen. And just as we watched with Leah Boy, where she really managed to create that space and get away, and the race had gone, and she managed to take two people with her, but there was still a substantial gap between them of about 2 to 3 seconds. So I think the men will be looking at that, looking at yesterday's race, and not allowing any mistakes like that to happen again.
Spot on, Alice. And you can feel that tension already building here on the start line. This is where it all begins. 63 athletes from all corners of the world lining up for the very first men's 3 kilometer knockout sprint at World Cup level. Big names, bold moves, and no room for hesitation. Every second, every decision, and every turn is going to matter today. Let's meet the field for Heat 2 as we get ready for this incredible chapter here in Ibiza. Alice, as the athletes prepare, what's going on in their minds right now? Is it nerves, excitement, or is it all about locking straight into that race plan like they've been drilling down for weeks?
Yeah, I think there'll be a bit of everything in there, to be honest. Like I've never really believed anybody if they say they're not nervous. I was always told that nerves are a good thing. It means you care and it means you're passionate about it. So there will be some nerves. I'd say there's probably going to be less than the 10K, if we're being completely honest. But I think that's a good thing in the sense of it will be a because it's new, there will be a slightly more like relaxed approach in the sense of let's understand what the nature of this event we're dealing with, where can we improve, how does it go. So there'll be a lot of lessons to be learned, which I think is very exciting for the athletes as they embark on a new open water swimming venture.
And yesterday, there was absolutely no love lost on that finish line. Not only on the finish of the men's 10 kilometers, but also in that sprint lap where we went four across. Bethlehem, Rozovsky, Marc-Antoine Olivier, and Logan Fontaine eventually taking that win. Whilst it's obviously all for your federation, for your title, for your overall swimming resume, there is a lot at stake for these athletes, and they do not like getting beaten.
No, certainly not. You know, we're talking about an event which, whilst it's not the 10K like blue ribbon open water event, it's still bragging rights. Like you can still come away with this with a heap load of confidence that you are one of the best sprinters, that you tactically are very good at executing things and knowing just how to race in open water is, and that is a key tell that we've had from the World Juniors, but also just about an hour ago from the women's race, where You saw Leah Boy manage to execute this perfectly, time everything so well. She was fourth in her heat, seventh in the final, and then managed to have such a storming swim and break into create a breakaway and take the win. So um, there's a lot here still on the line. It's still, a World Cup medal, a senior world medal, and even just as we always touch upon for federations, it's a great indicator that everything is going in the right way, that programs are still working well, and that the competition is high.
And as it was for the women's race, much like it is for the men's, these two heats have been uh, almost pulled out of a hat to decide which athlete will be swimming from which heat. It's purely anyone's guess to see the order. And unfortunately for the athletes in Heat 2, it is absolutely star-studded. And there will be some unlucky athletes not to make it into that semi-final of 20 athletes. We see Logan Fontaine walking out. One thing that I did want to note is in the women's race, we saw that it was our faster athletes really moving to the front of the race early on, and it paid dividends late in that race as they were able to get their hand on the touchpad in first place. One athlete I wanted to highlight from this walkout, Schreiber of Switzerland. He was in the top 10 yesterday. He's very fast in the pool. One of those leaner, lengthier athletes. Do you think we'll see him featuring at the front of this race in the 1500 meters?
I definitely think so. Taking the confidence from the 10K swim yesterday in the sense of had a really good swim, kind of a great like open water breakthrough, but then also being able to draw upon your open water. No, sorry, your pool speed, your pool knowledge. You know how a 1500 feels. It is a very different sensation to a 10K. I'd say it burns a lot more in the sense of it's just the strength endurance that it requires is kind of a different kind of strength endurance from the 10K if you're really going to split hairs. But I think he's an athlete that can definitely draw upon all of the experience that he has gained both in the pool and open water and maybe do something special this morning.
So on that then, who are you expecting to be leading this race, especially early on? We saw yesterday that both Ollie Clement and David Bethlehem really wanted to feature themselves towards the front. Do you think much more of the same in these heats?
I do think so. I'm leaning towards Ollie Clement to definitely be up there, especially at the start. It just depends on, you know, how he potentially copes with the cold in terms of when you get out of the water. That's something that I would be very conscious of as an athlete of being like on the like smaller side. And Ollie Clement is a lean man, so probably not a high percent of body fat on him. So probably will feel the cold more than others in some cases. So I think that's something that, especially for some of these athletes and the men, when they get out, making sure you're keeping warm. The sun is shining, so that's going to be a great help. But getting out of 19-degree water into about an 18 to 20 air temperature will feel a bit cold.
This is the second time we've seen it at the World Aquatics event, formerly at the World Junior Championships last year. Of some of the junior competitors, we have Sashavelli, Hana Kovacs-Serez, and the junior world champion in Kaito Shimori racing from Heat 1. Do you think the experience they've gained through racing this already on the international stage will feature for some of these juniors today?
I definitely think so, and they should take some confidence from that, of course, whilst it is a very different beast in a senior race. I cannot stress the jump that you face from a junior to a senior competition. It is like it feels like a cavern, to be honest. And we've seen Kaito Shimori and especially Sashavelli and also Kovacs really kind of grow into that, and they've made it look fairly easy. But I will say it is a massive jump. So for those juniors or previous juniors who have that experience, definitely call upon how it felt, where you knew to push it, any mistakes that you might have made at that point, and look to correct those. They will have to swim faster. That is like a hard fact of it. They're going to have to swim faster in the 1500 and the kilometer than they did at juniors. So there'll be less energy left in the tank. but I still think they should definitely take confidence from that and don't be afraid to get in and mix with the big boys.
So just over a minute and a half until we'll be starting heat number 1, followed by 3 minutes till heat 2. Any last minute predictions here, Alice? Who is going to be crowned our first champion of the 3 kilometer knockout?
Oof, that's a big question. I honestly, this could go so many different ways. You know, obviously we've got those 3 incredible Italian swimmers that we had yesterday who could all reasonably have that opportunity to win it. I think there's going to be some anger and regret from, Logan Fontaine, Christoph Rozovsky, potentially Marc Antoine. So I think there will be some swimmers definitely carrying through a bit of aggression in that sense, in the way of like, I really want to get in and do this. I want to right some wrongs. So you really put me on the spot, Will. I don't know. Oh, I
Sorry
was
about
leaning
that.
towards Ollie Clement. I just think he looked so fast, and I think he just tired a little bit towards the end of the race. He started slipping further back. So my logic was thinking that in this 3K knockout, he'd have a great opportunity to keep it short, keep it sweet, and let his speed fly.
History is about to be made here in Ibiza. A test of speed, tactics, pure heart, all compressed into just minutes of racing. 63 athletes, but only one winner. Get ready, because the next era of open water begins right here, right now. And we are underway. A monumental moment for open water swimming. The first ever men's 3 kilometer knockout is here live in Ibiza. No settling for second chances. It's all about urgency, position, and survival from the very first stroke. Already, you can see the field exploding off the line. Every athlete desperate to control their future in this sport. And it's just as chaotic as we expected, Alice.
Oh, definitely. And, we've got Sasha Velli in there, Marc-Antoine Olivier, Joey Tepper, and Dylan Cravley both had great races as well yesterday. So it is like the men's races are really, really got so many competitive people within it, and especially a field of this size, 31, it's busy. There's not a lot of spaces to qualify for the final, so you're going to have to be very switched on and making sure that your positioning is perfect.
As we mentioned, Heat 2 in this race is star-studded. What it does mean is it gives these athletes an opportunity to move through. We saw in the men's 10 kilometers, Kaito Shimori electric off the blocks, and I think we can see him pushing through here once more. It's hard to pick up that Japanese hat, but as we mentioned, Alice, a moment away from starting Heat 2.
Yeah, and it's always an interesting one when you see other people go off and swim, and you've got your moment now. So they're just about to start, and or I don't know if that's the whistle to tell people to separate. I'm not sure if it was the starting whistle or not. There's a lot of whistles going on at the moment,
Yeah,
but
lots of whistles.
trying to pick out.
It looks like an
It looks like it
Italian.
might be an
I think it might be
Italian.
Greg.
I was going to say it's an Italian hat, yeah. And then a French hat closest to us, or do you think that's the Japanese hat, maybe?
No, it looks like the French hat. So
Okay.
it's,
Either.
there's the whistles though. We heard
Yeah.
this before. But here we are, just moments away from the start of Heat 2 in Ibiza. Alice, we've seen just how critical those opening strokes can be. It's another huge field that will be exploding from the start. This is pure racing instinct now. Every move matters. Every second counts, as we've said. If they want to place in the semi-final, they need to be in that top 10. So as they move now into the hands of the starters, we get another shot of the lead heat. We'll come back to the start of Heat 2 shortly. So hard to pick those Italian caps, especially when so many of them
Yes.
are racing strongly. But I think we're 5 seconds away from the start of Heat 2 here. See if that shot comes through. Don't believe so. We are underway. Oh, here we are. Heat 2. Ready and raring. Oh, great start across the field. And Alice, as I said,
So
we've
on
seen
it.
how critical those opening strokes are. What are these athletes needing to get right off the gun?
You just need to be ready to go. This is where your warm-up's so important on the land. Because when you get in, you're going to be going from stood, with your heart rate elevated because of anxiety, but then all of a sudden you get in and you go and you really have to shift. And we have a very easy picking off the start with David Bethlehem. I'm very grateful that he doesn't wear the top half because it's so easy to pick him out. And he
Yeah.
looks like he's absolutely flying. He's making a
Well,
statement here.
one thing I was seeing on that start line, but I didn't want to comment on it, was Bethlehem actually went down into a starting position like you would in the pool, like grabbing onto the pontoon to.
Oh,
Yeah, haven't seen that happen before, but it's worked off the start line, and honestly, it's been one of those things that you talk to an open water swimmer, they've definitely considered it at one point. How many dolphin kicks you do
yeah.
off the starting pontoon, and Bethlehem's showing that if you give it a crack, it works.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things you kind of, when you get into open water swimming, you kind of abandon those skills in the sense of, I'm never going to dive off a block conventionally, at a Worlds or an Olympics because I'm not that swimmer. I'm never going to have that little back plate to push off of. I mean, when I learned to swim and for the start of my competitive swimming career, revealing my age a little bit here, um, we didn't have the back wedge. So it's not it's not that far removed to think, yeah, why don't open water swimmers actually start like that? The only issue with it is if you overbalance and you fall in or you fall backwards, that would be completely detrimental. So it looks like he managed to find his balance really well, probably got a few underwater kicks and really found some space and is driving forward. He looks really good.
Yeah, he's almost created separation from that top three as well. So we'll see how that plays out. Just as we saw in the women's race, the back markers of Heat 1 starting to fall off. That will cause some confusion at the end of this race. Moving now to the front of Heat 1 with this fantastic overhead shot here of Ibiza. It's very hard to get an ID on that first Italian. We can tell you it's not Paltrinieri. He's not swimming from this Heat 1, so it'd be remarkable if he was swimming at the front there. But the two definitive lines, and you can see just how involved the official is at these early stages.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just probably read out some potential people it could be. We've got Philadelphia in this first heat who took the win yesterday, Ilario who took the bronze medal, um, as well as like three or four other Italian swimmers. So it looks like he's doing really well. I can't really see who is in second place either. Don't know if that's changed into an Italian swimmer now. So I think we've got an Italian 1, 2, and then a French in third. But hopefully we'll get some. Sorry, this is Heat 2. My apologies.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got David Bethlehem still charging away
That's
with.
crazy. Look at him
Um,
go.
yeah, I know. Yeah, this is what's interesting. I wasn't sure if the men were going to like look at how the results of the women's played out and potentially try and make the 1500 a bit softer or try and play around with that pace some more. But at the same time, as we were saying with Tadaducci, there wasn't anything else you could have done. I think you really do have to play to your strengths, and if you do try to get too if you do try to play around with it too much and not actually utilize what you're good at, and in the sense of David Bethlehem, this is getting out and swimming fast, which he is used to, then why
Yeah.
not use that? Why would you try and change what you know already works for you?
But Alice, how fast is potentially too fast here for David Bethlehem?
Yeah, where's the breaking point exactly? I mean, this is kind of what I was alluding to at the start, or saying that you shouldn't be too afraid of being tired. The kind of meters that these men will do and that the women do, they will be used to it and be able to cope with it. But at the same time, everybody else will have that endurance in them as well. So who's going to have their energy conserved the best for that 500-meter sprint? And we saw that work perfectly with Leah Boy. She obviously managed to create some
Wow.
space, but we obviously don't know whether the men will allow any space to happen at this point. But I mean, David Bethlehem's making this look like a 1500 time trial.
Yeah, he's gapped the field. Like, I was not expecting this, and honestly, this chase group, well, not that they will, because it would take the hindsight of finishing the race, but almost let David go at this point. Just let him tire himself
Yeah.
out and conserve your energy and focus on finishing in the top 10 of this heat, because it's going to take a big effort to close that down. which is, credit to David Bethlehem. I did not expect a tactic like this, but if he's able to get, we saw in the women's race, Tadaducci shutting off with 5 strokes to go, that does nothing for your recovery. But if he's able to swim that last 100 meters relatively easily, it will definitely aid his recovery. So, but this is a big statement to be making early on in the race.
Yeah, definitely. You're so right about, second and third place. That's kind of where you're sat. There's no point trying to gap that. And it looks like, I don't really know if he's pulling away any further at this point. But it is definitely an interesting choice. I see why he's doing it. I think it's definitely putting a statement down. The only issue is I'm just so worried about the conservation of energy for the 500. I've got no doubt he'll be absolutely fine in the 1K. But as we saw, the change of pace from the 1K to the 500 was like a 3 second per 100 drop off. So Leah Boyf went from holding 67s in the 1K to holding 60 from Italy, is leading the men's race at the moment, and he's looking in really good form. Yeah, it wasn't the person I was expecting to be leading it, to be honest, but great for him.
Not at all. As we said, this is a random draw for the first 2 heats, and how it has played out is heat 1 is significantly sort of less experienced, we'll say it that way, than heat 2. As we shoot back to heat 2, you're right, that gap's not opening up anymore, but that second swimmer looks like Ollie Clement maybe, is certainly in the hunt to chase that down. And has created separation from the feet. As we come into this turn here, this could be a big move for Bethlehem. We saw in the women's race, if you can get around it quickly, it can gain meters on your lead as we shoot back to heat 1 here.
Yeah, and just on the point of Bethlehem, I think it must have been like very disappointed with his swim yesterday, potentially, 34th, when he was sat in such great position all the way around. So I think this is him again. And this is why I really love the inclusion of more open water swimming events at these World Cups, because you have a disappointing swim, you can still get in and do something else the next day and take something positive from the weekend. Whereas quite often, if you come away with a disappointing 10K, you go home and you think about like Ibiza as being quite a negative place for you to swim. So it's great to see David Bethlehem getting in and giving this a real good go, and just trying to improve on his result from yesterday, which I'm sure he's going to do.
Well, speaking to that disappointment, Alice, Bethlehem finished 34th yesterday, so clearly a strong performance today is needed, but also one of those athletes with the more slender frame that cold would have been playing an impact on his race at the end. So it'll be interesting to see how that rebounds today.
Yeah, definitely. And this is why I think it's so important to have varied stops on the open water and the World Cup legs, as we do. You've got some venues which tend towards warmer water, some which are a bit cooler, and so it just allows athletes to have to be robust in that sense. And but allows, if you're great in cold water and you really like that and it lets you fly, then great. This is the venue for you, or the time of year especially for you. So yeah, just looking down at Ollie Clement as well, he kind of faded away too, finishing in 25th. So I'm not surprised again that he's if he is the swimmer, it does look like his stroke, I think, from what we have seen of him this weekend. So
yeah.
I'm not surprised that he's up there as well, making sure he's putting himself in good contention, and he's definitely closing this gap on David Bethlehem.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see just how far the gap from Clement back to the field is going to be as well, as we get this wider shot. Oh, it's not that big at all. So we'll see through this turn can. They're on their way back down to finish off this 1,500 meters. What it does do by keeping the pace this off is it stops what's happening here in Heat 1, where you have a lot of speed coming through the back end of the race. The jumps from, say, gear 3 to 5, which we're seeing in Heat 1 now, are much harder to come past in Heat 2, where the pace has been on for the entire race. So good on David Bethlehem for committing from the start. But how's this sprint finish here in Heat 1, Alice? It's going to be almost impossible because you've got French hats and Italian hats. It's anyone's guess to who's actually going to take this heat out.
Oh, definitely. This is the point where you're actually like quite concerned for all of these athletes, because you make one mistake, you slip up a little bit, and I mean it's a similar similar scenario to what we saw yesterday, where the three Italian swimmers were just able to capitalize that on and find space and whip round. So you need to make sure you're not making any mistakes at that point where you saw those like five swimmers going all across. And what I love about this event that is already showing is the diversity and the ways in which it's going to be swam. So you obviously had heat one that's ended up being like a straight shootout at the end by the looks of it. And,
Oh, wow.
oh my gosh, look at that. Yeah, good luck. Good luck to you to get your hands on the pad in the top 10.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you look at that top two levels there. There is 12 athletes sitting across, so anyone can still come. I would say you can come from 3 body lengths back when it's bunched up like this. So you really have got about 15, 16 athletes that could finish in that top 10, even more.
Yeah, I mean, it looks. Is this Sasha Veli or potent? Trying
Yeah,
to
I
catch
think
the
so.
number.
Yeah, it
Looks
looks like
he's
Sasha
really
Veli.
taken a break away now. He's doing really well.
Was it? Yeah, number 2, Sasha Veli, is in the
Nice.
lead, and he has experience from the junior world champs in this race. He at junior champs actually led every single event until the last 100 meters. So he's clearly learned from that experience, and he has sensational speed and skill at such a young age. So no surprise to see him charging through. Unfortunately for him, there is a sleuth of Italian swimmers just trying to creep up to that hip, and if it gets there, the race is once again back on.
Yeah, definitely. And this is where the danger of getting kind of dragged back into the pack. Not that they're actually dragging him, but just the speed that they're putting down will just kind of cause him to like slowly be able to lose his water, and then you're all of a sudden going fingertip to fingertip with these swimmers. So it looks like he's really holding his own still. I'm curious to know how much effort they are putting in. Some of them could definitely, especially those like sat in the middle here, this Italian hat that is behind Sasha. I'd say you could probably knock it off a little bit,
Yeah.
but you don't want to play around with it too much, because all of a sudden people start coming over the top of you. So for the sake of 20 meters of relaxed swimming, it's not worth dropping your pace at all.
So there's 11 swimmers in this lead group coming down to the sprint finish now. There's one leader out in front, and it is the Frenchman, Sasha Veli. This will be his first win on a World Cup stage. It is the first heat, but he gets it done just a tick over 16 minutes. And there we have, oh no, it looks like Joey Tepper of the USA missing out on a chance to get into that semi-final, which is just such a shame. He raced so well yesterday. Gravely making it through in the top 10 though. And Kovac Cerez, one of the juniors as well, Alice.
Yeah, I mean, an absolute cluster of swimmers at the end there. Really, really competitive. And we're just cutting back to heat 2. We've definitely seen Ollie Clement like bridge that gap between himself and David Bethlehem. And this is what I was talking about, the statements being made. This is about, okay, yeah, you had your moment being able to swim away for 1.3k, but now I'm on your hip. I'm going to be annoying, and we're going to battle this out for the closing lap, for the
Yeah.
finish on the first.
It does
on
look
the
like
first heat.
there's
So
4 swimmers that have separated themselves, though, Alice. So do you think Bethlehem, he probably won't have a chance to look around and see that he's in relative comfort from holding this speed, especially seeing Clement pull up next to him? There would be some worry, but if anyone was pulling up next to you, it's one of the fastest men in the world.
yeah, God, he looks so good. He's just taking him out stroke for stroke, and it's one of those things. I don't know if they're even going to slow down. I think this is just, it might be an ego thing
Yeah.
potentially. If I'm going to be bold to say that, I think they just want to. They are racing.
Yeah.
They're maybe not thinking as much tactically at this point. This is just, hey, let's have a race. This is what I'm talking about. It's fantastic experience and training, because maybe this comes
Wow.
down to being what happens at a world championships, for example,
Yeah.
and you've been in this situation before and you know what to do.
Yeah, yeah, you're so right, and well, as much as that is absolutely on the money, this is very much the first experience for them. They would have been in training simulations to get similar outcomes, but nothing counts more than the real deal. Interesting to note that both Bethlehem and Clement have given each other room, so they're not going to be taking water from each other, but they are so comfortable. But as you said, Alice, none of them letting up in the slightest as they come down this finish arch. They aren't leaving anything on the line. So it is Clement and Bethlehem leading the charge. I think that's Philadelphia charging through, but it will be Clement, Bethlehem, and our athletes across. In third is, Diodato. There you go. Just goes to show it can be any Italian on the given day. Fontaine, Rozovsky, so some big names coming through.
No, it really can. There's always, like I said, there's always another Italian waiting. Great to see the Swiss athlete through there.
Greg.
And of course, Krzysztof Rozovsky. Greg just missed out as
well.
He
just came 11th. Oh, that's so unfortunate. Oh. That was one of the early picks, of course. The former world record, not world record holder, but Olympic champion over that 1500 meter distance, and so classy down to the 400 meter distance as well. Such a shame to see him knocked out in the first lap, but I guess it goes to show exactly as we were talking to Alice that you can't give any chances up.
No, definitely not. You don't want to take anything for granted at this point. You know that, especially after the kind of unpredictable and crazy results that we saw from yesterday in terms of what happened. We were expecting people to, get out and go fast. So unfortunately for Greg, just missing out, and just had a great shot there of Ollie Clement getting into his jacket, Coach Bernd helping him into it, and talking to him, probably talking about how he feels, what he's expecting from it, and things like that. So just showcasing what we were talking about of, for certain athletes, the cold will be a factor that they're going to have to really navigate around, and getting that warmth as soon as possible is going to be key.
Yeah, so right. And I mean, if you're going to pick any two athletes that would potentially get cold in a race like this, it would have been Ollie and David. So interesting to note that they didn't leave anything to chance. They really pushed hard all the way to the finish line, and then through the finish line and up onto the shore to get those jackets and warm sort of clothes on, drying off in the process. So from now, Alice, 10-minute break before we get into our semi-final. We'll bring those results to you very shortly. Another one that I did want to point out in the meantime is Australian Bailey Armstrong, just missing out behind Gregorio Paltrineri. He is one of those... how's that start from David? Sorry. It's a jump around. You can see off the line he had a body link on the field. So I wonder, that's something that we can keep an eye on for the start of the semi-final. Is he going to adopt that tactic again? And if so, is anyone else going to go to a similar pool-style dive into the water?
That's so true. And especially, I think for the 1K, it won't matter as much. But for the 500, if you can get the amount of space that he managed to create on the pack there was really special. And I suppose it's one of those things, when you're stood on the start line, if you stood next to two athletes who I don't know who is stood next to you, but if you stood next to two athletes who may not be able to keep up with you off the start, and you manage to find that space and you go, it can be race over for everybody else. That won't be the case as much for the 1K, and definitely not for the 500, because even if you end up on one of the ends, you're still going to be next to the other 9 incredible athletes who have made it through to that point. So I don't know if he'll be able to repeat it in the same fashion, but I definitely would love to see him do it again and see how it turns out.
Yeah, we know as well that there are a lot of superstars in the sport around the world watching on now. So, if you are one of those athletes that, mightn't have the best open water start in the 10K, it's never really mattered at all. But for now, what we've seen from one leg from Bethlehem, if you can get a body length off the start, especially in open water, that is free money. Why would you not, almost go into training and be like, oh, for the first time ever, we're actually going to have to work on our underwaters now?
Yeah, it's so true. It's a concept that I'm kind of like, That's interesting, but I think that that's what's exciting. It gives open else to train. And, you know, a lot of the time, the meters and stuff that is done is all about, you know, muscular endurance, aerobic endurance, building up that robustness. But to have a different thing that you can kind of lean into and play around with in training makes training more exciting and therefore makes racing more exciting. So it would be really interesting to see if anybody else does kind of watch
Oh,
this
wow.
back, see what he did, and try and do it again.
How's that the order switch with Gravely and Tepper? Tepper now making it into that top 10. So that's a storyline we'll keep an eye on. He finished fifth yesterday in the 10 kilometers. We'll get the Heat 2 results shortly, but let's just circle back. Gregorio Paltrinieri, the Olympic champion over 1500, the Olympic bronze medalist in the 10 kilometers from Tokyo, missing the final, missing the semi-final even. Like, that is a huge storyline. And you look at some of these names, don't get me wrong, no disrespect to Matteo Didiato, but you know, you wouldn't have him on top of Paltrinieri, and that's him to race that the way he did.
Yeah, it's the times are very interesting. The difference in times between the two heats is really stark.
For these athletes, none of them really would have expected for Bethlehem to race that the way he did. Do you think there's going to be an adjustment? And if so, you know, it's very rare that we get to see coaches talking to their athletes in the middle of an open water race with any really meaningful outcomes. Wow, look at that start list for this semi-final. It's going to be very fast as we go through. But yeah, to that point, Alice, do you think there's an adjustment being like, all right, well, you're starting next to David, make sure that you get on his hip at the very start, because if you can, it's not only going to drag him back to the pack, but it's going to push you forward.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this is what is so exciting about it, is getting to have that conversation with your coaches. You know, finding out how the other heat went. Was it faster? Was it slower? Who did what? Who should I be looking out for?
First up, representing France, Sasha Veli. Representing Germany, Oliver Clement. Please welcome next up, representing Italy, Davide Marcello. Representing Hungary, David Bethlehem. Next up for France, Marc-Antoine Olivier. For Italy, Matteo Diodato. Also representing Italy, Andrea Filadelli. Next up for France, Logan Fontaine. And Parker, Fabio Dalou. Representing France, Ethan Parker. Representing Switzerland, Christian Schreiber. And now our final two athletes representing United States of America, Joey Tepper. And finally, representing Brazil, Leonard Brandi Macedo.
There we have it, Alice. Our semi-finalists making their way down to the start line. One thing I did want to note, 25 seconds of the gap between Heat 2 and Heat 1. The 14th overall in Heat 2 would have taken out the win in Heat 1. So this is going to be a massive, massive adjustment for Heat 1 athletes as they move to the semi-final.
Yeah, you literally took the words right out of my brain. That's exactly.
And on that start line, some of the other athletes copying him here. To what point we're underway, and watch, 4 across is David Bethlehem using those underwaters. Let's go, Alice. Open water meets the 50-meter freestyle.
I mean, I love the combination of the two, you know.
Just noting that at the left of your screen is Ollie Clement. He looked relatively comfortable down that back straight, as did our second place in Bethlehem. On the feet of Clement is Sasha Veli. He looks really comfortable sitting in that position, and now we see those two swimmers from Heat 2 start to move back together in Bethlehem and Clement. Big kick, though, from the German out in front.
Yeah, he's really carrying that energy and that heat that he created in the 1500, especially towards the end when he was really chasing down David Bethlehem. And it looks like he's creating a gap here as well. And whilst it's is a shorter race by a third, it's still be interesting to see if anybody allows this to happen and allows this gap to keep growing, because he's really kicking for it.
Yeah, we can often tell, especially with Florian, exactly how hard he's going based on his kick. So similar with Ollie, he does have a more persistent kick even when he's not going easy. So it's not as much of a tell as it is for Welbrock. But interesting to note in this shot here, Bethlehem's come across, but he's not jumping on Clement. In fact, actually, Sashavelli's jumped off Clement's feet and moved across to Bethlehem. That's a very strange move almost for Sashavelli not to hold that line. And he's given... This is how these breaks happen. You just get a swimmer that just decides to move across. But luckily, Bethlehem has jumped back across to the German. That could have been a race over.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it was probably a considered guess that Ollie wouldn't get away, potentially, or maybe he just thought, actually, I'm not. I know I'm not going to catch Ollie Clement. Let me find someone else's feet. So, whilst we're looking at this race, and of course, people will still want to get their fingers on the touchpad first to get that security. You still don't need to worry too much about what first place is doing. You need to make sure that you are comfortably in the top 5, and then if you're behind that, you need to make sure you're in the top 10 to progress round. So
Still sitting behind.
yeah, again, it's just an interesting one, whether it's mind games of you're not going to be able to catch me even in the 500. So it depends if they will carry this pace through. I mean, they're both quick pool swimmers, and just watching his turn here is really good, really smooth turn for both of them. It looks like it's created even more of a gap because, as you saw, the four swimmers behind, you can see Logan Fontaine there in the white cap, and might be Sasha Fairley on the side of him there. So they look in comfortable positions, but further back here, that in the mix will be, Rozovsky, and I'm getting a little bit concerned that he might be too far back.
Yeah, it's a hard one to pick up with that overhead, exactly where Christoph is, but he is so experienced at moving through packs, and that's what I mean, especially the likes of Christoph. We didn't get to see his level of equivalent in the women's side. That arguably would be an Anna Marcela Cunha in terms of experience. Oh, this is Logan Fontaine has just put the hammer down to catch up to Bethlehem here. But as we get this wide shot, where's Christoph?
Yeah, oh gosh. I can see the Swiss swimmer embedded in the back as well. I think he's trying to find space round, but it's one of those things when the pace is so hot, finding space to get round is so challenging. And Logan Fontaine's done really well to put in a burst there to bridge this gap between himself and David Bethlehem. And do you have eyes or suspect where you might think Christoph is?
Yeah, Christoph is in the 5th row back. So as we go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's about 8th, sitting in behind one of our French swimmers, but great turn there from Logan Fontaine. He's one of those athletes as well that is so good at pack management, a really somewhat of an aggressive pack swimmer, but does what he needs to. We saw Christoph just duck through. He is so good on the turns like that. And to our points that we've been talking about through the broadcast, that isn't something that you can learn at training. That is something that you have to learn whilst racing.
Definitely. Absolutely. You're so right. And this is why if you're a junior watching or a senior and you want to break into the World Cup stage, or even a federation official or something like that, if you can find the funds, take people to these competitions. Let's keep growing the sport, keep giving your athletes opportunity. It is all about experience. Honestly, I remember my first few races and it was just the shock of a lifetime. You do all of this work in the pool and it obviously serves you well in terms of the aerobic and the muscular and strength endurance. You of course need to do all that work in the pool, but the experience and the tactics of racing, where to position yourself, can only be gained from getting into races with the best in the world. And that is why you can the world, and that is why you continually see, the Len Cups and of course the World Cups around the world attracting the best athletes, so they can go and race each other and therefore improve their performances year on year.
That's so true. Moving back to the front of the race, interesting to note, Alice, once more, Clement and Bethlehem out in front. They've both given each other some distance in between themselves. That is both a tactical move to give themselves their own water, but also means that if there's an athlete sitting on their feet, they've got no option but to swim through the middle. That is pure mastery by those two youngsters.
Yeah, definitely. And it's one of those things, it's like respect that, we both swim best when we are not having to mess around with each other. And I don't know if they're getting the yellow flag ready. There's a lot of whistle blowing. The official looks very, very concerned by some certain swimmers towards the further back of the screen. But in terms of Bethlehem and Clement, they're just swimming with like the utmost respect for each other and kind of being like, hey, I know I need my space, you need your space. Let's let that happen. Whoever finishes first. And you're so right, if anybody wants to come past us, they're going to have to climb through the middle, and then maybe we can then close that off and start to push them out.
Yeah, and the good thing as well, those swimmers that are sitting just behind them, they know that they're relatively comfortable if they hold that position. So there won't be too much argy-bargy to push through and take the heat win. There's no sort of points on the line for winning the heat. There's no prize money on the line for winning the heat. So they are in relatively comfortable positions. Interesting to note that Veli, Logan Fontaine, and Marc-Antoine all charging through. And also wanted to shout out, I saw Hannah Kovacs-Rez up in the top 5 as well.
Yes, yeah.
We can see Rozovsky coming out the outside, though, in that green Hungarian cap now, Alice.
Yeah, definitely. Just one thing, but just before we get into the finish arc, I'm really curious to see if there will be more swimmers from the faster heat in Heat 2 as opposed to Heat 1 through to the final. I'm just so curious to see if that has played in terms of the fact that their speed was faster and they were more ready for the speed that David Bethlehem and Ollie Clement have put into this semi-final. So just really curious to see how that plays out in terms of tactics and how we move forward with this event in the World Cups and World Championships to come.
No, great point. As you sort of noted earlier in the broadcast, it was drawn randomly for which heat you would swim from, and it was heat cap. Behind them, a range of French and Italian athletes with some mix of Hungarians. It looks like we're going to have an all-European final unless there's a late charge from Tepper. Here's some mind games, as you mentioned, though, Alice. The German coming through and getting it done ahead of David Bethlehem. Rozovsky is going to be tight on that finish there. There will be some storylines in this top 10.
Yeah, absolutely. Seeing Ollie Clement touch the pad and just look over and make sure that he did get in front of David Bethlehem and kind of made sure David saw that. So, great to see Rozovsky through. And Philadelphia's got in. So we've got the winner from yesterday in this, funnily enough, in the same position that we saw the women's winner from yesterday too. So, a lot of Italians in there, huh?
Yeah, 4 Italians, 2 Hungarians, 3 French, and a German, I believe. So, as I said, all European final, of course. That won't be the case at the World Champs, I don't believe. But these athletes, as we've mentioned, it's not just the World Cups they've been able to race against, the European Champs, the Len Cups. They are experienced athletes against each other. And what an opportunity lies ahead. The 10 top athletes heading into the final. I don't think outside of the likes of Paltrineri, there's any real megastars that have missed out on this final.
No, I don't think so. It's definitely fast, and I just really curious to see how this goes. They got David Bethlehem and Ollie Clement, who have been like going toe for toe in both their heat and now the semi-final. And the final, I just don't know if they're going to be allowed to do this again. I'd be shocked if there isn't more of an effort from everybody else to really stop them from getting their own space, basically, because what we're seeing is if you give either of these athletes space to swim, they are going to go. So I'm expecting like Logan Fontaine potentially, and maybe Krzysztof Rosowski to really, you know, try and get on their hip and not let them get away.
Well, the theme of the weekend has been unpredictability, and what we saw in the women's final 500 meters was certainly much more of that.
I'm not going to make a prediction. You know, we've made predictions for every other race this weekend, but I really don't know how this will go. Both of these swimmers look so fantastic. They've only got 500 meters to contend with now. The adrenaline will be high. They obviously did very well at keeping themselves prepared for the next race and the next round.
Otto of Italy finished in third there, just ahead of Fontaine and Olivier. He didn't actually race the 10 kilometers yesterday, so I was getting confused where he finished, but he didn't race, so he's coming fresh off a 1500 meter national title as well just a few months ago. So here is our top 10. As we mentioned, 3 Italians, 3 French, 3 Hungarians, and a German. This is 9:59 on the touch as well. That can't be real, surely. That's crazy.
That is get out of an open water race and have any kind of lactate testing done. So you just saw an Italian swimmer having his blood taken from his ear. I believe that's what was happening anyway, to make sure, like, to check where his lactate's at. And that's such valuable information, both for him, of course, the individual swimmer, but for the Italian team as well. When you're looking forward to a World Championships, and the fact that this is hopefully definitely a staple on our future programs, it's going to be so important to understand what their bodies are doing and how they are responding to these efforts.
Yeah, that's right. And this is the opportunity to learn, right? We break down our top 10 finalists: Alice, Ollie Clement, David Bethlehem, Matteo Diodato, Logan Fontaine, Marc-Antoine Olivier, Sasha Veli, Krzysztof Rosowski, Davide Marcello, Hanna Kovacs-Arez, and Andrea Filadelli. And we meet them now. We'll talk to just exactly the breakdowns shortly.
From France, Logan Fontaine. From France, Marc-Antoine Olivier. From France, Sasha Veli. From Hungary, Krzysztof Rosowski. From Italy, Davide Marcello. From Hungary, Hunor Kovacs-Arez. And finally, from Italy, Andrea Filadelli.
So there we have it. Once more, our top 10 finalists through. Interesting to note, the men's and the women's title holder from yesterday, both coming in 10th position. Unfortunately for the women's, we didn't see our title holder come through in the end. So I guess, Alice, as we head down to the start line for the last time, who are you picking?
You really tested me, Will. I don't know. I'm looking at the start now, and I think it could reasonably go to any of them. To be honest, they've all raced so well. I mean, Ollie Clement and David Bethlehem, if they are given that space at the start, I think it will be a shootout between them. Interestingly, they've all chosen to be very gapped on the start line. So I don't know if the person who is next to David Bethlehem, I think they've I suppose you've got Ollie and Bethlehem next to each other again, so we'll see how that goes.
For more than 100 athletes at the start of the weekend, now just 10 remain, 500 meters ahead, one final sprint, one shot at history, and we're moments away from crowning our very first 3-kilometer knockout sprint champion. Here we are. The pace will be furious from the first stroke. No time to think, just pure instinct. Alice, take us into the final.
I mean, already you can see this massive divide, and the swimmers who were closest to Bethlehem and Clement have just hopped right over, and I would do exactly the same thing if I was in their position. They have dominated their heats. They put a crazy fast time through heat 2. They dominated the semi-final. why wouldn't you just elect to get on their feet, hold on as long as you can, and see what you can do if you can get past them? But they are both storming away here.
Well, Ollie is so fast, and we did speak about this off air, so I must apologise that sort of talked you down from Ollie Clement pre-race, but he's so
No
fast.
stress.
Like, I mean, the world record in the 400 freestyle just got broken out of his squads, and he was with that swimmer all the way into the last like sort of 100 meters. That was Lucas Martens, of course. So there is some world-class all-time speed coming out of the start of this race. Bethlehem, though, not letting him get away. The difference between what we saw in the women's race.
Yes, definitely. I think Bethlehem is playing this in a very smart way where he is not letting anybody else get on his feet either. He's not letting Ollie away, but he's not impeding Ollie's swim. So they're really allowing each other to kind of fly. And it looks like it probably will be that straight shootout that we were speaking about. But Ollie Clement has looked really good. And I just think drawing from his 10K race where he was doing really well and then just kind of faded away at the end. He obviously has that strong front end speed, and for whatever reason in that race he just faded away a little bit. So there might be some fatigue from the races that you just spoke about that he did at Stockholm. So to see him get back in this 3K and show, okay, yeah, I've got speed and I've clearly got endurance, because to do 3K like this is very, very difficult. Whilst we're calling it a sprint, there is still so much endurance needed to cope with what they're doing.
Yeah, and that will certainly play a part here on our swimmers out in front. Ollie Clement really starting to get to work. The unfortunate thing for him, Bethlehem has managed to hold the feet. This turn coming up in just 50 meters time is oh so important. And keep an eye on third position. This is the dark horse. This is who I think has a shot. Yeah, coming through. I think that might even be Mark Antoine. I think he's had a
it is. Yeah,
cap change. Yeah. So he needs to get onto the feet. This is a crucial turn. Can Clement hold the speed out of it? He's done a good job there to get Bethlehem on the other side of him. But the unfortunate thing still is Marc Antoine is in connection, and Christoph Rozovsky is charging down Marc Antoine Olivier. This is where Leah Boy had the gap, so it's all on now. I don't love Ollie's chances from here.
Ooh, controversial. Okay, so if we're looking at it time-wise, he's got maybe like a minute 20 left. So we're talking just over 100 meters. And, David Bethlehem's really surging alongside him. I do think the medals are closed off, I have to say. I think there is a healthy enough gap between Marc Antoine and, he's moved off his hip.
Yeah,
is he elected to go for Ollie's feet?
That was a bad decision by David to pull away from Ollie there. He's opened the door for Mark to come across, and you see Mark just adjust there, Alice. That is a crucial moment in the race, because if no one can get onto Ollie's hip here, he's got the race won and done pretty much. I think I might have gone too early with Ollie's call.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think David has done so well at sticking on Ollie, but finding that gap or finding that speed to really actually get round Ollie is what he's contending with at the moment. And Marc Antoine, I just need to shout this out. He's like king of consistency. He came fourth yesterday, third in Soma Bay. He's going to come away with a medal here. He's really the most consistent male that we see on the circuit. I really do believe that. But David Bethlehem, wow.
Into the
found another gear
arch.
here.
Yeah, into the final arch it is. 2 leaders, Clement and Bethlehem. They've battled through all 3 rounds, and it's going to come down to the touch. Ollie Clement finding another gear, just leveling up over the top of Bethlehem, and he takes the crown of the first ever 3-kilometer knockout. What a finish that was. Bethlehem in silver. Olivier gets third. And a battle for 4th position. Rozovsky gets it done. But wow, that was so fast. 4:50 for the final 500. Talk about speed, and it really did play into the hand of the German.
I mean, this is kind of what I was talking about, lending towards training. from what I know of like Bernd's group and the training that they undergo, it is tough and it's repetitive like swims. So for him to get in and to be able to do the 1500 fast, to do the 1K fast, and then to do the 500 fast, to basically win. I can't remember if he won Heat 2, so please forgive me, but
Yeah.
to be at least second in that Heat 2 and then win the semi-final and then dominate the final like that and really find that extra surge of speed at the end was so impressive. You know, when you think David Bethlehem was going to bring it down and make it a really close race, Ollie Clement just managed to find that extra gear again.
Yeah, that was special stuff, and shout out to yourself, Alice, because you did call Ollie off air, and that credit
Oh,
where credit's due. But
thank you.
also shout out to the sport director Ignacy, who was one of the first to congratulate our winner of this historic moment on the beach. He did call me earlier today, and he said that Ollie Clement was the man in form for today's race. But to see it come to fruition, I mean, we can break that finish down again, but who else to hear from the athletes themselves?
Well, we're going to have a chat with our race winners. We'll start with third position. These guys got off to a great pace. It was always a hard chase from there, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a very great race. It's very hard to follow Clement and David, but I'm very happy to finish third for the first knockout.
Well, there's our winner of $1,000. $1,500 goes to you. And again, he led in the semi-final. He had to chase him. He did exactly the same thing here in the final. He's a hard man to catch.
Yeah, he's a hard man to catch. We had a plan for the whole race, so we were pacing so fast. And the front of us always jump in the first and then make some room for us so he can go in the front and I can go to the legs. So it was a good teamwork.
Good stuff. You've got your check. Now, obviously, we can talk about you winning the race. We can talk about you having a $2,500 check. But what I'd like to explain to all these people is just how different is this event to the 10K or a 5K or anything else. This is very, very different all of a sudden, isn't it?
Yeah, it was the first time. So we need to think about some tactics. And I try to win like all races so that I can start from the left and swim for myself. And at the end, the 500 was just like winning the first turn, and so that I have space and everyone has to catch me, and I think I made a good job.
You made a pretty good job. You won all the semi-final, then you won the final as well. Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise for your medal winners and your prize money winners. From France, Marc-Antoine Olivier. From Hungary, David Bethlehem. But your race winner from Germany, Oliver Clement.
What a great insight from those athletes there.
Definitely.
Interesting to hear that Ollie and David were actually working together. And just on that, as we see the official results popping up now, the first 1500 they turned through in a 103 per 100 pace. The 1,000 meters they were just a nudge under a minute per 100, and then in the end 58 seconds per 100. That is so fast. Like that
Crazy.
It doesnment make sense.
I haven't got words for it, to be honest. It's so quick. And it was really great to hear the insight, as you said, of David saying that they had a plan, and you could see that when they were swimming. They were very respectful of each other's space in terms of David and Ollie allowing that space, and then kind of in a sense shaking hands and saying, let's swim, let's go fast, let's drag the race out, let's give each other space, and then whoever wins, they win, right? Then we know there wasn't any kind of like tactics or like kind of muddying of the water in that sense. This was a pure sprint, and Ollie and David made it so they dictated that for the rest of the other competitors.
Yeah, it's honestly because I didn't really understand why David moved off the feet of Ollie going into that last straight. I thought that was a bit remiss of David to sort of give Ollie that freedom and make Mark make that decision. But hearing the interview afterwards and knowing that that was deliberate, that they were working together, it does. What that move does, it makes the third athlete make a decision and it creates chaos through the pack. So very, very smart racing.
Yeah, it was so great to watch, and it's really nice that they gave that in the interview. To be honest, that they told us, and I loved hearing from Ollie Clement saying that he wanted to be on the left hand side, like he every time. So that was his incentive to win each time, was the added bonus of getting to be on that far side and then create that space for himself and go. And that's what I was saying about, if he's given that space, he's going to go. So it wasn't by chance he found that space. It was very calculated. And honestly, I'm not surprised that we're already seeing, it's only the first ever one at the senior stage, but we've seen some tactics play into it already, and I just can't wait to see where this event goes. And at the World Championships too,
Yeah.
it's there's so much for it to give.
Yeah, it's it'll be interesting because I don't think that they'll be swimming together at a world championship level. That's for sure. That one is all stakes on the line. You want to be crowned. You want to race a similar way and have that outside line. It's so beneficial because it enables you to get that clear water. But then when you do it on the adverse, Christoph now knows exactly how these athletes want to race. And will there be a reaction from, say, Christoph?
Really like going for it as well. So I just don't know if they could catch that pace. The only way I could see it working is hindering them in their heat in some way. Really trying to get on their hip, not allowing that space, and then that means they can't get the outside line, whether depending on which way the course is, whether that's the left or the right, they can't get that outside line, and then they're more bunched up in the middle. And also, it's so dependent on the speed of the other heat. So we know that heat two was very quick. But if heat one had been even faster, then Ollie might not have been able to get that outside. And then it might have changed the dynamic of the whole race. So the fun thing, as always, about open water is you can't ever really repeat these races. I don't think we'll ever see an exact repeat of what's happened here, because there are so many factors and variables that have gone into creating this win for Ollie and for David and Marc Antoine to also have a fantastic swim. So I'm saying that we have so much to be excited by with this event and
Yeah.
the future of it. There's so much to come.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're already talking about the crazy storylines that are going to come later this year. And I guess, as you said, you can't recreate these races, but you can't recreate these conditions either. When they next race at this level, they'll be at the World Champs, and the water temperature is predicted to be in the high 20s there. So a completely different style of race. I don't think you can swim this fast for this long in those sort of water conditions, especially when you get out and the humidity is high, the air temperature is high. It won't be inclined to be as fast and recover as quickly.
Yeah, I agree. Whilst some of these athletes wouldn't have liked the cold water, especially for the 10K, where you would start getting cold towards the end, when you've got uh, distances this short, relatively this short, it is less of a factor. You get in and you're actually kind of thankful for it, that you don't have to worry about like overheating or feeling hot, that the cool water will be keeping your body fresh and you'll be able to move through with it. So it's obviously played very well into Ollie's hands in that sense. But yeah, looking forward to the World Championships, where we'll see this event again in that kind of heat. Definitely will be a different consideration for athletes of how do we stay cool when we get out of the water, not how do we stay warm.
And I guess one of the major storylines that we haven't really discussed through the knockouts today is well, obviously this event is just crazy and it has so many opportunities going forward. One of those opportunities being maybe a further introduction. Oh, sorry, just on that overhead shot there. Ollie dived left of the field, as did David. So they both wanted to get away from the group and clearly showing that if you get that free space and when we see this shot, Christoph then chasing down that tail, it can be crucial. But sorry, circling back, one of the key attributes of this event is it's less intimidating for some of our pool athletes to come across. You think there's some athletes currently looking at the way that this race is being swum and thinking, oh, maybe if I come across, I could pick up another world champs medal?
I think so. I mean, looking at how Ollie swam it, this is very typical of what we see of the men's race, where you can get pool swimmers kind of getting in with their speed and showcasing if you can find clear water, especially in a venue like this. I mean, it was a slightly wavy swimming pool, is what we're talking about here. If you can get in and deal with the fact that it's an open water race, but find your space and allow your speed to fly, you've got a great opportunity to bring home, like you said, a world championships medal. And sorry, just going back to what you said about Ollie and Ollie and David diving in and just veering left. It honestly just makes so much sense. You know how we were saying before about Tadaducci, for example, and how she couldn't really have raced it any differently because she was playing to her strengths. You see Ollie and David playing to their strengths in that exact same way of saying, we saw what happened yesterday. Our coaches saw what happened yesterday in terms of how physical it got, of the three Italian swimmers creating that breakaway and going in and getting that win. I don't want to put myself in a situation like that. I know if I get into a finish funnel with Rosowski, he's going to win 9 times out of 10. I'm not risking that. I need to find my own space. So it makes so much sense. And it's great to see athletes not taking any chances in that way and just creating opportunities for themselves.
So I believe we're minutes away from the medal presentation of both the men's and the women's knockout sprint. For the very first time, we'll be crowning our champions here in Ibiza. But for now, let's look back at some of the highlights from the women's knockout. And just like the men's, it was completely unpredictable, Alice.
Yes, completely. It was very kind of back and forth between them. Tadaducci did really well at leading it for so long, but then that 500 speed from Leah Boyd just really kind of blew it apart, and it was absolutely fantastic to see Kajimoto taking home a medal for Japan, something that she should obviously be really proud of, and of course Bettina Fabian, a fantastic weekend, the only athlete. Just checking my head. The only athletes come away with 2 medals, so showcasing that she has the both sprint endurance and the tactical awareness to consistently come away with medals at this on the World Cup stage.
Well, and also speaks to the strength of those Hungarians in that finish arch. I think that's the skill that we often overlook, is just how good that final 50 meters can be, because at that point, it very rarely relies on how good you are at swimming and more so how aware you are with your skills, right?
Absolutely, yeah. That's where you really need to dig deep. Everything hurts, but you find your adrenaline, you find that drive, and you let it carry you through. And you kind of put everything to one side. Make sure that you're in the right position, that your tactics are right, and just let it go and see what you can come out with.
So here we had heat. Sorry, this is heat 2 coming to the finish line. Tadaducci was so strong early on. That high stroke rate paying dividends in this race. And it's so cool to see them. After a 10K, you really just roll onto your back and enjoy finishing a monumental athletic performance. But here, they were just cruising into the recovery area. So good to see the Japanese athletes on top. When you look back at this weekend, Alice, it's like completely unpredictable. This is so good to see for our sport. But do you have some of your top moments from the weekend?
Yeah. So yeah, I think the unpredictability. If we're going to some at the weekend, it's unpredictable, and I think I'm just really excited by the Japanese swimmers. I think that's my highlight. I know they're coming away with one bronze medal. Both Ebina, Tsusamori, and Kajimoto really showcased at moments like great technique, moments of brilliance, and Tsusamori also coming away with a good result yesterday in the 10, as well as Kajimoto too. So um, I think honestly that's my highlight. I love the development of nations that we haven't typically seen in open water swimming because as you can see, it's very European dominated. We had an all European final in the men's race, just in the 5K and the 3K knockout, sorry, and it needs some more people in there. We can't just always have, the French, the Germans, and I know they're the best swimmers at the moment. So I'm just really excited for the development of other nations that are historically very good at swimming as well. Of course, we have Australia, who we didn't see feature as much this weekend, but we will get them back soon. I think, Will, you probably got some more insight on that for me, but of course, as well, Leah Boy with her fantastic swim, and Angela Martinez, I think will probably be my like individual highlights in terms of winning in her home country and putting on a really good show. And I only just realized she's very young. She's only about 22 years of age, so her future is very bright. But I was wondering what your highlights are for the weekend from the weekend.
Yeah, well, so many good ones within your realm. I think mine is very generic, and I do apologize for that because I like to be more specific and bold sometimes. But it's really speaking to, I guess, the strength of the sport at the moment. 159 athletes racing here in Ibiza, doubling as the Spanish Open Water Championships, and breaking the record of the previous highest participant rate, which was 150 in Gulf Oranchi. So it is a pretty special time to be an open water fan. We've been saying it for a while, tell a friend to tell a friend. I think this is the moment to do so. And especially, we are currently in the midst of the evolution of the women's race. And as we were talking about off air, Alice, I don't think we're too far away in the men's. There's a level of ego and uneasiness in that field that everyone thinks that they are the best swimmer in the world. There is one clear winner at the moment. His name's Florian Welbrock, rolled onto his back with distance to the rest of the field after Soma Bay. So I'm so excited to see, I guess, the evolution of not only the sport, but specifically the men's race starting to spice up, and who's going to be that person that sort of takes it to the next level. We're yet to see. So yeah, like I can't speak highly enough about it. Tell a friend to tell a friend to get into open water swimming, because I think this is the biggest thing to happen in the aquatic swimming space or aquatic sports space in a while. And the knockout is at the absolute forefront of that. So for all you tuning in to the broadcast this weekend and specifically today, a big thank you for joining us, because you've made history.
Yeah, and I absolutely love what you said there about the fact that this is like a really big deal in the aquatic space. Like, there aren't often new events, or there definitely haven't been any new pool events created. This is the fun thing about open water, because it's such a young sport. You can literally be so creative with the events that you want to do. I think there's, that we've got the 3K knockout now. I'm sure somebody else might be cooking up something in the background or thinking things through or seeing, how does this work? How can we modify it in some way? The relay, I think, has been a fantastic inclusion as well. So the growth and development of our sport has really come on leaps and bounds, and it only has so much more of a way to go in sense of growing out our spectators, and I mean our participants have already grown so much. I often say it off air to Will that I'm happy that I've had my time, because I look at the amount of women and men that are starting now, and it's some of these cases it's like double the sizes of World Cups that were being done about 10 years ago. So it's really grown, it's really developed, and I can't wait to see where else it continues to go to.
Such a great point. And I guess, Alice, it's often hard to recap these events in the moment. So somewhat of a shameless plug, but of course we're doing it in the spirit of moving our sport forward. But if you want to hear our thoughts on the entire weekend, the men's, the women's 10 kilometers and the 3 kilometer knockout, and just what today's events mean going forward through the season, be sure to tune in to Blackline Fever and hear, I guess, what our thoughts are deeper than just on air, because I'm sure there's, as there is for the swimmers, there's a lot that goes on in the background that leads to these performances. So, and of course, Alice, we get to review where we're sitting with our predictions, but as we've discussed throughout the broadcast, this weekend was everything, including unpredictable. So I don't think we got too many right.
Yeah, I don't think I got a single one actually. I don't think either of us did, with our 10K predictions, and we decided not to predict the 3K knockout because it was an unpredictable weekend. A relay, we probably would have made a prediction, but with the 3K knockout, there were things that we couldn't know. So, for example, we didn't know that Ollie Clement was planning to win every single leg of it, so he could have that left-hand line. That's something that only him and his coach would have been discussing and being aware of. So, and that's why we love open water swimming. It is in its nature unpredictable. It allows people to come sailing through in the final 200 meters when everybody else is kind of having an argument on the left-hand side of the course, and you get the medals just kind of swim away in those final moments, as we saw in the men's. So I don't think we'll see things like that happen again. Definitely not this season. I don't think we'll see that happen this season, because I think there'll be a very switched on approach to our athletes who were the ones who lost out there. And but it makes for great viewing. And the exciting thing is, when we move to Setubal, it will be a whole nother issue. There'll be whole other issues. There'll be whole other tactics to bring into it. So always exciting.
Moments away from seeing those athletes we've talked about on that medal dais. And I guess, Alice, as we circle back, the two Germans stand on top of the podium today. We get to hear that national anthem twice. It's one thing that we always go back and forward on who's the most dominant nation. And yesterday we were really big on the Italians taking a sweep in the men's race. But when it comes to top tier talent, it's really hard to argue against the Germans.
Yeah, I think so. I agree. Italy has like this continual depth that will go on for generations. I'm sure Germany does have the same, but in terms of, those individual elites at the top, up there consistently, you'll pretty much always have a German on the podium at a given point in the weekend. We've had 3 Germans on the podium this weekend, actually, with Celine Ryder, Leah Boy, and Ollie Clement. So already, do you know how I said Coach Burnt would go away from World Championships with 6 medals? And I still haven't done the maths on it. He's came away this weekend with 2 medals, and they're not even from the swimmers that I expect to get the medals. So unfortunately, Celine won't be at the World Championships. That those spaces are closed off. But he's still coming away this weekend with 2 medals from 2 events. So impressive.
Yeah, you're so right. And, I was reviewing last night and almost feeling somewhat apologetic to the likes of Fabrizio, who also has a mega squad. But when you start putting that talent in the water, and especially when you consider that the damage is going to extend at the World Championships from just the open water realm into the pool as well, it's just such a strong squad. And good on them for working so hard, because that's what it is. They all those athletes work so hard day in, day out. They're so committed to the cause, and that's why they reap the rewards for their efforts. And
yes, definitely. So excited to be able to see them enjoy their moment on the podium as well. It's always fantastic to celebrate with the athletes like that.
Speaking of the podium, we move to our medal presentation area. Quick shout out, of course, to our VIPs, as always, helping today with the medal presentation. We have Fernando Carpena, World Aquatics Bureau member and president of the Spanish Swimming Federation, Sid Cassidy from World Aquatics Technical Open Water as the swimming committee chairperson, Antonio Ramon, the sports council of the city of Santa Elias del Rio, and Salvador Losa, the council de Ibiza sports councillor. So Of course, Alice, a lot goes into these events outside of just the swimmers, and we thank all the administrators and delegates that enable it to happen.
Oh, absolutely. As always, there's so many people who make these events happen. And of course, the athletes go and kind of get their like golden moment in that sense, but so much hard work behind the scenes in so many different countries to bring these events together. And what an incredible setting that we've had for it as well in Ibiza.
Yeah, so grateful to have been seeing the action here as we now move to our medalists. How is this? Ichika Kajimoto of Japan on the dais. Let's go.
Yeah, this is such a great moment. We get huge congratulations to the Japanese team and to her, of course, as well. Really, really bright future for these Japanese athletes, and the continuation and the continual development is only going to shine through.
We said in the men's race, the hardest ability is versatility, and Bettina Fabian is starting to show that second in the knockout. What a moment for the young Hungarian.
Yeah, absolutely. The only swimmer to come away with being on the podium twice this weekend, bronze in the 10K and then the silver here. So fantastic weekend for her. And again, she's still so young. There's so much more for her to come. And then Leah Boy as well, back on top of the podium at a World Cup yet again, whilst it's not in the 10, a fantastic swim in the 3K knockout.
So with Leah on top, she'll be presented a medal shortly, and then we will hear the national anthem of the German Federation. And this will be a moment that no athlete forgets, and somewhat Leah getting used to this experience. So congratulations to our medalists in the women's 3-kilometer knockout sprint for the first time.
Please stand for the national anthem of Germany.
What a moment. Leah Boy on top of the podium. Now the photos of our medalists. Alice, what a moment, history making for this podium, but also for the sport.
Yeah, definitely. You know, we had such a fantastic showing at the World Juniors in this event, and then to see it on the senior stage, it has absolutely lived up to the hype and expectations that I think we've been placing on it. So, you know, I really hope all the organisers, the athletes, the coaches come away from this thinking, okay, next time we're doing this, what can we improve on? What can we do? And just continue moving this event forward because it's so exciting, and I think there's so much potential to come from it, as we've already seen.
And we'll move to the men's medalist in the 3-kilometer knockout as we see our delegates once more. Sid Cassidy on the podium now for our gold medal delivery. He, of course, as I mentioned, the chairperson of the Open Water Swimming Technical Committee. Sid, one of the main contributors towards this 3-kilometer knockout. And Alice, I'm sure there's many swimming fans around the world thankful for his contribution today.
Yes, absolutely. You know, he's really one of the legends of open water swimming, both the elite and recreational. So we're really fortunate that we have I guess custodians of the sport, as you said before, to guide us through and really continue the development of it.
Marc-Antoine Olivier in bronze. As we mentioned in the women's race, he is so consistent at this level. Bethlehem in silver.
Yes, yeah, fantastic to see Mark back on the podium as always. I think it's a place he's very comfortable being, to be honest. Always there, always up there, consistent, always in the top 10, and then if not, he's on the podium. So it's a really fantastic race, and great to see David Bethlehem back on the podium as well. His first time on a world stage podium since the Olympic Games. So hopefully he can take some great confidence from this, especially after what would have been a disappointing performance from him in the 10K, and carry this energy through to the World Champs.
Yeah, what a momentum builder, as you said, for all three of these athletes, really. And they'll share this moment together. Good to see Germany, Hungary, and France on top of the podium where they belong. And we get to hear the German national anthem once more, this time for Ollie Clement.
Please stand for the national anthem of Germany.
What a moment up on the podium for these three athletes as they stand there proudly receiving their medals. And Alice, over the past 2 days here in Ibiza, we've witnessed something truly special. The start of a bold new chapter for open water swimming, new formats, fearless racing, and a spirit that shows just how far this sport has come and where it's ready to go. It's been fast, it's been fierce, and it's been unforgettable. Alice, standing here after a weekend like this, what's the feeling you're left with about where open water swimming is headed?
I'm so excited. It's just in plain English, I'm so excited for the future. It's going to be fast, it's dynamic, it's ever evolving, ever changing. There's always somebody new and ready to jump into those spaces, somebody that we didn't expect, as we have seen time and time again this weekend. So I'm so excited for the future. We've got the next World Cup in Setúbal in about 6 weeks' time, and then off the back of that, only a month until the World Championship. So the season is coming thick and fast, and I'm so excited for the journey that we're going to go on with it.
And with that, a huge thank you to the athletes, coaches, organisers, and our incredible broadcast team. And of course to you, the fans, for sharing this historic weekend with us. On behalf of myself, Alice Deering, and everyone here at World Aquatics, thank you for believing in this sport and helping move it forward. This is just the beginning. We can't wait to see you again on the next stop of the journey. Goodbye from Ibiza.